Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good week. Today's presentation is a little on the heavy side, which I'd like to talk about from time to time. Most of you know my ideas on avatar, transformation, and life after life, and the progression through time. Back in the 1980s, I walked into a motorcycle dealership in Southern California, and there was a red Kawasaki there that had an energy to it, and I will describe this energy as it's almost like the Mandela effect update, where there's a haze or a cloud or an energy that like controls the situation, or it's almost like a destiny feeling. And I looked at that bike. I go, okay, that's my bike. I'm buying that. So I went to the salesman there. He was the owner. It was a small shop. And I said, yeah, I'd like to buy that Kawasaki there. And I asked him a little bit about service, so forth. So I rode it home, kept it in really good shape, polished it, changed oil off, and I was really into it. I had very little money in my pocket at that time and just barely making rent. And one Sunday morning, nice sunny day in Southern California, about 75, 78 degrees, I decided to strap my fighter kite on the back of the bike, on the back of the seat, and just ride up State Street and to the ocean, to one of the parks there, and just fly my fighter kite. I was about a half a mile from the beach, and I crossed what used to be the last traffic light on the 101 freeway years ago. It's now all total freeway. And the light turned green. I proceeded over the freeway and down this slight ramp toward the beach. And I was accelerating 40, 45 miles an hour. A pickup truck to my right that was going to cross across the road I was on either didn't see me or thought he could race and beat me across. And before I knew it, I had this big old green pickup truck right in front of me, and I was closing in fast on it. My bike impacted the truck between the driver's side door and the rear tire. The bike stayed with the truck with the front wheel bending underneath and the pipes being bent, and it was, plastic cracked. It was kind of a mess. I flew over the truck, and I think it was about 25 to 30 feet I landed in the gutter. And what I remember of this wreck is, at the moment of impact, I remember I had the brakes on hard as possible. My muscles were all flexed, and I heard a crunching. It was somewhere between crushing Cheetos in your hand and twisting an empty soda can. It was and that lasted less than a second, and then it was complete blackness. I found myself in I guess what you could describe as space. There were no stars whatsoever, just blackness, but there was a 360-degree blackness, nothing around me. It was totally quiet. I felt no pain at all during this whole thing, zero pain. I could describe my disposition at the time as being content in a way. I didn't have expectation. I had no sense of time at all. And now that I think deeply on it, it was almost like a waiting room feeling, but it was okay. Everything was okay. And then I guess it was about 10 or 12 minutes later, a crowd had circled around and parked the vehicles to check this out. And there I was on my back after this event, and I opened I still had my helmet on, of course. I opened my eyes, and this was 12 minutes later, and a lady about age, I would say early 30s, 30, 33, looked down at me. She said, "I thought you were dead." So I squeezed my fists one at a time, lifted my knees. Okay, yeah, I was functioning. And I stood up and I didn't feel too bad. I took my helmet off and it was damaged. It looked like somebody had taken a screwdriver and just hammered the screwdriver into the helmet in several places. It was just useless at that point. And I was about 10 blocks from home. And I think somebody asked me if I wanted an ambulance. I said, no, I'm okay. I put the helmet under my arm and just walked up the street to my house. And in the meantime, when I was on the ground, a tow truck came and had taken my bike to a storage facility that I followed up on it later and checked it out. It was a real mess. So to me, I believe this was my first noticeable transition from avatar to avatar, from life to life after life. I shouldn't have survived that, and I'm pretty sure I didn't. And now this next image you see is about 10 years later. This is another Kawasaki, and this is me on the bike. And also you'll see my son on the bike, and he was about age 5 at the time. This one was in a wreck too. One night, it was around 5 p.m. I rode this black Kawasaki to Santa Barbara, and I went to a store that I thought would be open. It was closed. So I rode it back home, and I'm on a secondary road. I'm not on the freeway. I'm on a secondary road doing about 40, 45 miles an hour. And I had that feeling, that cloudy, hazy, like Mandela effect update feeling of almost when you start on a playground slide and you're part of the way down, you're like, okay, well, I know I'm going from point A to point B and there's no stopping it. I'm sliding down. I had that almost like on a conveyor belt feeling. And oddly, I also had a feeling in my head, or actually said to myself, I'm an accident waiting to happen. And I didn't know why I said that, but I did. So it was like this destiny funk going on. Now I was cruising along about 45 miles an hour, and there was a gas station on my right, a laundromat to my left, and up ahead there was a Carrows Restaurant to the right. And as I was cruising, just approaching the Carrows Restaurant, a car coming in the other direction decided to turn in front of me to go into Carrows. Didn't see me at all whatsoever. I barely touched my brake. I didn't leave a mark on the street. There was no time for that. I just plowed into his front headlight. My bike stayed with the vehicle, was just destroyed. There's plastic everywhere, fluids. And I flew again, 25 feet or so, 25, 30 feet, ended up in the gutter again. In the blackness for a shorter time, maybe 3 minutes. I was in the blackness again. And then I opened my eyes. I looked back at the bike, and there was a huge pool of like fluids around it. So it had been smashed for a while, like a few minutes. And all kinds of people coming around saying, well, it was so loud, and all that. And this time I did take a ride to the hospital in the ambulance. They checked me out and they said, well, you're okay, and sent me home. So these are my two main avatar transition events, and I just wanted to share them with you. And the reason I said Mandela effect update twice is there seems to be some sort of energy, like an ambient fog, haze, or warp, or whatever you want to call it, that alters the timeline in some way and updates. And it's a very interesting study. There's very little known about it.